Same photo, same place. I just turned off one light. I turned this one on instead of just using this. Now you're gonna see the exact same photo, same place. Look at the difference between the two. All right, you see the difference in that? We've got here versus there. See the difference of how the light hits her face? We've got a consistent coloring on the one where we don't have an overhead light on.
Welcome to the Neon Buzz, where we offer marketing advice for oral, aesthetic, and other elective healthcare professionals. Sit back and relax while we share our digital marketing secrets to help you grow your practice.
Hey everyone, today we've got something a little bit different for you on the Neon Buzz. We've worked with hundreds of different social media accounts, and we know that great photos can go a long way in helping somebody stop scrolling and pay attention to your content. But we also know that having a full-time professional photographer is not really in the budget for lots of small businesses or healthcare offices. And so usually that situation is that somebody in the office has been assigned to take photos for social media and they're handed a phone in order to do it. And so what we're going to do today is show you some of our best tips and strategies on how you can take some great photos using just your phone, no matter what office you have to work with. I'm excited to show you how you can take some pretty decent headshots just using your phone, specifically an iPhone. But first, there's some other tips that we got to cover first before we get to that. But hang with me because I promise all these tips we're going to talk about today are all going to be useful in making all your photos better. All right, first up, let's talk about framing your shot. Now, this could be applicable to photos you're about to take or for photos that you've already taken if you want to go back and change some of them. When it comes to framing a shot, we want to make sure that we don't have too much headroom way up here at the top. We want to make sure there's not too much room on either side, that we're really focusing on the thing that we want people to look at. And usually in our offices, that tends to be a person or a product that we're working with. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that even though we want to focus on that, we don't want to go too tight, because when we're dealing with social media, a lot of times we got to leave some space somewhere for text of like Instagram, or whether it's Facebook or you're doing TikTok. You got to know where all the little buttons and the little descriptions are going to show up on your screen, and you don't want to have that covering up something important in your shot. All right, this next tip also has to do with framing, but this is when you're taking photos of several people together. What I've noticed typically happens is somebody will hand somebody else a phone and say, hey, will you take a photo of us? And what they tend to do is step way back, and they take the photo in such a way that you can see everybody's outfit from head to toe, everything they're wearing and what all's behind them, and things like that. And that's fine if you're on vacation or you're out on the town on the night and you want to show somebody where you're at. But when it comes to our businesses and trying to grab somebody's attention on social media, what people really will connect with first and foremost is going to be a smiling face, and specifically connect with the eyes. And so the smaller we make that in the overall picture, probably the less chance we have of grabbing somebody's attention as they're scrolling through all the things they're bombarded with on social media. So when it comes to taking this type of photo with several people in a shot, I tend to say, I kind of word it this way: we don't need to see everybody's shoes, because the reality is that we've got different coworkers who may feel differently about their bodies or may not like what they're wearing everywhere that day. And so what we really want to do is try to focus on those faces, on the smiling faces. And so the way we want to end up cropping a lot of these photos is we want to go ahead and start to bring it in and bring it in, bring it in to where we don't actually see all of everybody's outfit. We really want it to where the faces are going to be the primary thing that are going to capture our attention whenever we see this photo at a first glance. Now, I hear what you're saying. If you say, well, Alan, we can't always, crop out the shoes on everybody's photo when we got to take a vertical and there's 5 people lined up in this shot. I get that. That's not really what I'm saying. What I'm saying is just have priorities when you're taking a shot, that you don't just take it haphazardly, going super wide. You want to focus on people's faces and things that your viewers are going to connect with. So if you got 5 people in a shot and it's got to be vertical for, say, Instagram, then you can't really go tight enough before you start cropping off people's faces in that photo, then that's totally fine. If it ends up showing all the way down to their socks or their shoes, that's fine. All right, we're about to get to the part where I show you how to do headshots only using an iPhone. But first we need to talk about a couple of things. One of those things is lighting. And that probably should have been the very first thing that we talked about. However, I wanted to talk about things you could use right away, about cropping and framing and things that you can immediately start using. Lighting gets a little more tricky, a little more complicated, but we're going to try to make it simple for you guys. So when it comes to lighting, the best thing you could ever do if you want to take a photo of somebody at your office, a coworker, a patient, a customer, something like that, would be to go outside and probably find some shade, because really harsh sunlight that comes down and makes really harsh shadows doesn't look so good. But man, if you can find shade outside, natural sunlight, it makes everything look so nice and so soft. That's probably gonna be your best bet. But you know what? Some days it's raining. Sometimes it's right in the middle of the day and there's no shade to be found, and the sunlight coming down is super harsh, and that's just not an option. And so all you've got is inside of your office. And that means you've either got overhead lights or you've got windows. Now, one other option would be you could have an external light, a little accessory that some people put on their phones, and they might use a little ring light or something like that. That would be a great option. But sometimes you don't always have that. Probably in a later episode, we'll cover some stuff with video where we definitely want to look at lights like that to make some of the best video. However, when it comes to just taking photos in the most simple way, if you can't go outside and if you don't have the accessory and all you've got is this and you've got that, how can you make the best photo with just those parameters? So let's talk about windows first, because that's going to be our very best option. First thing we're going to do when we want to take a photo using a window is we're going to want to cut out these overhead lights. So let's do that. That makes me a little bit darker for this video when we cut that off, but that's fine because it's going to convey the point of what we want you guys to know when it comes to how to use a window and how not to use a window. So I'm going to have Opal come over here and help me, and we're going to do a few test shots and show you how you should probably be using a window while you're taking photos. All right, so I'm actually using Opal's phone for this. This is a 13 Pro. So if you got one of these iPhones that has the 3 different lenses on the back, you got a lot of options that are available to you. This particular photo, just about lighting with windows, you could probably do it with any type of phone, iPhone, Android, whatever, even if you only have 1 or 2 lenses on there just for this. In a minute, we're gonna get to how important the 3rd lens will be for some other photos, but for this, you could do it with just about anything. All right, so a lot of times people wanna put somebody right in front of a window to take a photo because they think what's behind them looks pretty. Well, if you've ever been on Zoom, you know this might not be the best idea, because how many Zoom calls have you been on where somebody put their camera right in front of them with the window behind them, and what do they look like? It's blown out. Their face is really shaded. You can't really see it. You just see this bright light behind them. All you're really seeing is a shadow on a person. So if I try to do that on this phone right now, iPhone has some HDR capabilities to it, so it makes it not quite as bad as what you would have like on a webcam with Zoom. However, it's still not great. So I'm recording right through here, and we're going to show what it looks like when I just take a picture of Opal just like this and how dark it is. Now, what I want to do is I want us to switch places. So I'm going to have Opal stand right there. I'm going to have my back to that, and now I'm using this whole window as my light source, kicking light onto Opal right over here. And right off the bat, we can already see that we're already going to get a much better photo of Opal just only using that natural light. So let's look at the difference between these 2 photos. We have here, and then we have here. You can clearly see the immediate difference between the 2. Let me show you real quick why it was important that we turned off these overhead lights, because usually your lights in your office building are going to be more of a yellow light. This is more of a bluish light. And when you try to mix those 2, you can get some weird colors on people's heads. So I'm going to turn these back on so you can see why we turned them off in the first place. Same photo, same place. I just turned off one light. I turned this one on instead of just using this. Now you're going to see the exact same photo, same place. Look at the difference between the 2. All right, you see the difference in that? We've got here versus there. See the difference of how the light hits her face? We've got a consistent coloring on the one where we don't have an overhead light on. And then as soon as we switch over to the one with the overhead, we got shadows now, kind of where we don't want them. And we got a little bit more of a mixture of color of different types of light in there as well. While we're talking about ceiling lights, if a ceiling light is directly over a person when you're taking their picture, you're probably going to get a pretty harsh shadow on their face. And usually it's not very flattering. But if you just take a moment and scoot the person back a few steps, this will likely eliminate those unflattering shadows. So before you snap a photo in the office, pay attention to the lights above you and make sure to move people around to wherever the light is best. All right, we're finally at the part that I promised about how to take headshots just using an iPhone. Now, there's a caveat to that. You have to have an iPhone that's typically about 13 or higher. and model number, and you need to have one that has the 3 lenses to it. Mainly what is important is that you have the portrait mode available. What that's actually doing is taking 2 different photos at the same time, and is using software to blur out the background behind you to try to create something that looks like one of the big expensive cameras like a DSLR would take, that's using mirrors and lots of other technology to create that depth of field that your eye would normally have when it looks at something. Because when you normally look at something that's close to you, everything behind it is blurry. And if a photo can recreate that, then it looks more like what your eye naturally sees, and people tend to be drawn to that and really tend to connect to that. So we want to try to create something like that when we take a headshot, so that the background isn't super in focus. What is in focus is the person's face, and that's what we're going to be drawn to, and specifically drawn to their eyes as well. So what I wanted to show you is how to use the portrait mode to pull off a really great shot inside your office. So we're here at the Neon Canvas offices. I got a window right here. I'm going to use this, and I'm going to bring Opal back in here in just a second. And we're going to use this as our primary light source, where I'm going to have her turn, and I'm going to light her from this way right here and shoot just a little bit of an angle like that. I'm going to end up using the iPhone, I'll show you here in just a second, with specific settings, and we're going to create a photo that's going to look pretty similar to something that somebody would probably take with a big fancy camera like I usually shoot with. All right, so I've got Opal in place over here by the window. I'm going to have Opal angle her shoulder in just a little bit, so that light is going to naturally spill onto this side of her face. A little bit of a shadow over here, but it's not going to be too bad. And then looking through what we see right here on the actual iPhone, I've got it on just regular photo mode with the regular lens number 1x lens. And you're gonna see how far away this is. This shows like her jeans. We see the thing on the wall back over here. There's just a lot of stuff we don't want in the photo if this is really gonna be a headshot or something that focuses on her smile and her face. So first step we're gonna do is we're gonna switch this over to portrait mode. Now, portrait mode naturally puts us with the 1x lens, and it's gonna say natural light. All the stuff that has to do here with the natural light and the stage light, all that kind of stuff, we're not going to worry about that today. But the 1x lens, we could do that, and as you can see, it doesn't look bad. But here's where the trick becomes to make it look more like a big camera. We're going to tap on that 1x and turn it into 3x. Now, if you have a newer iPhone, like an iPhone 16 or something like that, you might even have a 5x. We want to go with whatever the longer lens is, and that might require us to scoot back a little bit to get them in frame correctly. But that's the trick to this, is getting the longer lens. Now, from here, you can immediately start to see the difference of what's in frame, what's not in the frame with Opal. Now all that stuff that was in the background is gone. We're only really focused more on her face and her torso, not necessarily like her jeans or whatever, the shoes that she's wearing. And now here's one other little trick from here, is that you want to check up here on the right hand corner, this F means for f-stop. Some people have their settings, watch this, as I move that to the side, the background gets really soft, but look at the top of her head. Look how that got, like her part in her hair just like all of a sudden got really fuzzy. We actually want to back that back off to right about 4.5. It's a nice in between where we can still see her face, we can see the edge of her hair, but it's not too soft for us. So we're gonna go ahead. All right, Opal, give me a good smile right there. Here we go. All right, now I want you to do is I want you to angle just a little bit more towards the window. Stop right there. We'll take one like that. And then I always like to have people leave your shoulders and only bring your face towards the middle just a little bit, and do that, boom. And now when you kind of have people turn like that and do different angles, that looks better on different people. Some people look better from the side, some people look better straight on. If you give them a couple options, they'll probably be pretty happy with you because you probably got a pretty decent photo. All right, so from the photos that I just took, we can crop that in tighter how we want to and get what we want in the frame. But I'm going to reposition her just a little bit more, so we have no edge of the wall, no TV or anything over here in the background. I'm actually going to stabilize my elbow right here on the wall because I'm getting a little shaky here. I'm going to tap right there. I'm going to focus on her face. Boom. And we've got a nice little headshot. All right, so zooming in close here. Notice the difference between this shot and this shot. It's tighter frame, less distracting in the background. And then here was the other one from the side. And then here was this one as well. All right, everyone. Thanks for sticking around to the end. I know we covered a whole lot today. Hopefully, you learned a thing or two about making better photos whenever you're using your phone around the office. If you got any questions about things that I covered today, about any of these tips or suggestions, go ahead and leave a comment. If you're on YouTube, definitely leave a comment down below. If you're on Instagram, you can leave a comment there, or you can direct message us on there, and Katie will get that to me, and then we'll try to help you out with any of the questions that you have. But other than that, that's all we got time for today. We'll catch you next time on the Neon Buzz.